it was felt that the most appropriate action to ensure the membership remained balanced in line with the Constitution, which we voted on a couple of years ago. I'd also like to thank Gemma Duff, who has also stood down for personal reasons. And I'd also like to thank Keith Harvey, who unfortunately can't make it this evening, for standing in as chair of, for the last two meetings that we had in December. They were very interesting meetings, and Keith did an excellent job in chairing those meetings. Other members of the forum are school members: Maria Morgan, Nicole Browning, Paul Davey, Joe Lagares, John Hewitt, Jackie Davies, Trevor Keeble, Gemma Piper, Michelle Harrison, Richard Hawthorne, David Ramsden, Leslie Roberts, Phil Spray, and Lindsay Wood. And non-school member this evening, Richard Hand. The following councillors and officers from West Berkshire Council are hoping to be in attendance, and they are Councillor Ian Cottingham, portfolio holder for Finance and Corporate Services, who I don't believe has joined us just yet. Rose Carberry, Principal Advisor for School Improvement, who I know has another important meeting and will join us as soon as she possibly can. Melanie Ellis, Acting Head of Finance and Property. Nicola Ponton, Acting Service Manager for SEMH. Lisa Potts, for Finance Manager, and Jane Seymour, Service Manager for SEN Inclusion and Disabled Children. And as you are aware, before we start, I'd just like to reiterate that tonight's meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so members of the public are able to follow our proceedings. I'll move straight on to item 1, apologies. Could you give us the apologies for tonight's meeting, please, Jeff?
Yes, Chair. So I've received apologies from Chris Prosser, Keith Harvey, Councillor Heather Codling, Campbell Smith, Charlotte Wilson, Mark Bennett, Richard Hawthorne, Anne-Marie Dodds, Avril Allenby, and Michelle Sancho.
Thank you very much. And can I then move on to item number 2? And I'd like to ask members of the forum if they are willing to accept the minutes of the previous meeting. This was the meeting on the 4th of December, as the minutes have not been put together for the 19th of December yet. To accept these minutes as an accurate record of that meeting. As chair, I propose to accept the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of December. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Gemma. I think then we should put it to the vote. And can I ask Jess if you ask for a vote for a show of hands, please?
If you can raise your hand if you're happy to accept those minutes. I confirm they're approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will then sign those as a true record of that meeting on the 4th of December. Item number 3 is actions from previous meetings. So you have this on page 15 of your pack. Lisa has given a very full answer for item number 1. Item number 2, Jane may refer to that in her verbal report in item number 9 later on this evening. And I believe you're still looking for dates. Have you any update on that, Jess, for a further meeting?
I'm still exploring, but I'm hoping to circulate some tomorrow.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I ask then, under item number 4, if any member has any declarations of interest that they'd like to make at this point in time? Lindsay, you have your hand up.
I declare an interest, please, under item number 10 because I work for the trust.
Thank you very much. I think we will just remove you for that particular item, which hopefully won't take too long to vote on. Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to say that as item number 10 is an item for decision to be made rather than discussion, we're going to move it and take it after item number 6. Item number 5 then in the meantime is membership. Jess, can you update us on membership issues, please?
Thank you. Yeah, so primary head teachers are being consulted to seek a new representative for the forum following Melissa Cliff standing down. Maria Morgan's term of office is due to end in April, and Maria's confirmed that she's happy to continue, but will consult on this with the new Hungerford head teacher once they start in April. And finally, Gemma Duff recently stood down, and an election will be held shortly for this maintained primary governor position.
Thank you very much indeed, Jess. Agenda item number 6 then is the Central School Services block budget for 2024-25. Is Lisa with us?
No, I'm going to cover Lisa. She's actually on leave today. We've just been
Excellent.
WhatsApping, and I said I'll cover her report. It's not a problem.
Okay, Melanie, then thank you very much indeed. Can you take this item, please?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, this one does need a decision on it, but essentially we are there with balancing the CSSB. We've got a funding allocation, which was a very small reduction from last year, 12k. They do reduce this block every year, which is unfortunate, but fortunately there was reduction in cost of our capita system, so we've managed to balance the block this year. So the proposal is in the paper there. So I think it just needs to go to a vote on supporting the budget, unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Does any members have any questions on item number 6? Yes, Trevor.
Hi, thank you. I'm looking at the division of education data, which has been reduced by 16%. What implications does that actually have?
Oh, that is the bit with the capita system. The saving is in that section, so it's not really a reduction in the actual service. It's just we've got a cost reduction on the system.
Okay, so it does sorry, can I just clarify then? It does exactly the same thing, but it's just costing us less.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, any other questions? If not, then could I have a proposer for the recommendation then to agree to the 2024-25 budget for the Central School Services block for 24-25? Yeah. Thank you, Paul. And could I have a seconder as well, please? Thank you, Phil. And over to you then, Jess, please, if you'd like to take a named vote for this item.
Yeah, so this is a vote with all forum members. If you can indicate if you're for or against the recommendation. Nicole Browning.
For.
Jackie Davies.
For.
Paul Davey.
For.
Richard Hand.
For.
John Hewitt.
For.
Trevor Keeble.
For.
Joe Lagaris.
For.
Maria Morgan.
For.
Gemma Piper.
For.
Leslie Roberts.
For.
Graham Spellman.
For.
Phil Spray.
For.
And Lindsay Wood.
For.
I can confirm that's carried.
Thank you very much indeed, Jess. Right, we'll now take item number 10, and if I can ask Stephen if you can put Lindsay into the waiting room at this particular point in time. Sorry to lose you for a few minutes.
Yeah, will do.
I think Lindsay may have to leave, and then I'll pop her an email when we're ready for her to come back.
So, thank you very much indeed. So item number 10 then is an item on the growth fund 2023-24 payments. One payment is recommended, and that's to Trinity School, and that's for 105.3 or £105,300 to Trinity School. Melanie, would you like to take us through this item, please?
Yes, so every year after we've received the October census data, we write out to all schools and ask them to apply for growth funding if they think they meet the criteria. We only had the Trinity request, and it's been reviewed by finance, and it's also been approved by head of finance for payment. So it just needs to be now approved by schools forum. So if there are any questions on it, I'm happy to take that, or if not, then it just moves to the vote.
Thank you, Melanie. Does anyone have any questions? I think it's all been
Yes.
set out.
Sorry.
Trevor, yes.
Yeah, sorry, just asking the obvious again, but what's the actual criteria? Because I can't actually, within the report, I couldn't actually see what the criteria was for this payment. So I don't have a problem with it. I'm just working out what the actual criteria is which they've
Okay,
got it for.
they're quite detailed, and they've been subject to a previous report. So we've just recently approved the criteria for the 24-25 growth funds. So I'll be happy to send you that if you want to have that, to get you up to date with where we are with the criteria, but it's quite long and complicated.
Okay, so why is it right that only Trinity apply for this? Because they're the only ones who fit the criteria.
Yeah.
So that's the question I guess I'm asking.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
thank
we
you.
weren't expecting any others to apply in this case, not this year anyway.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Melanie. Does anyone else have any questions? No, that looks good. In that case, could I have a proposer? This is for all school representatives. Could I have a proposal for item number 10, please? Thank you, Nicole. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Paul. And I'll hand over to Jess then to carry out a named vote for item number 10, please.
Thank you. So this is with all school reps as mentioned. So Nicole Browning,
4.
Jackie Davies,
4.
Paul Davey,
4.
John Hewitt,
4.
Trevor Keeble,
4.
Joe Lagaris,
4.
Maria Morgan,
4.
Gemma Piper,
4.
Leslie Roberts,
4.
and Phil Spray.
4.
I can confirm that's carried.
Thank you very much, Jess. We then have a number of items for discussion. Agenda item number 7 is the dedicated schools grant for 2024-25. These are the final allocations. And could you lead on this one, please, Melanie?
Yes. So yeah, as it says, we received our final allocations of the DSG in December. So it sets out all of those in table 4.1 and shows the increases or decreases from last year. The report then goes on just to talk about the schools block and how that's been made up, which is also what's covered in the report after this. So I'll go through that then. So it's just an information item, and it's just what our final allocations are, and happy to take any questions on those.
Anyone have any questions for Melanie on this item?
So I'm going to
Yes,
ask another
Trevor.
question.
No, not at all. You're welcome.
I noticed that politically there's been quite a lot of conversations about the amount of money which local authorities receive from central funds. So does this, is West Berkshire actually active within that, or is it just saying this is what it is and we move on?
I think we are active within that. Oh, but Ian is on the call. I wonder if Ian might want to say something at this point. Sorry.
Sorry, who was that, Melanie?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure with Joseph Holmes, Section 151 officer, to attend a local government finance conference in Westminster. So we had the local government minister extolling the virtues of the 64 billion, which had been sort of promised to local authorities. In reality, no extra money was actually within that 64 billion. There was talked about the DSG, I suppose, funding, and how quite a number of local authorities effectively have this off balance sheet, and the fact that there was no sort of commitment made that this overspend, which seems to be quite, as I say, prevalent across the majority of local authorities, will be called in 2026. I think they just seem to be kicking the can down the line. Extra funding. There wasn't really, as I say, a great deal of communication or sort of commitment that there would be more money coming our way from a education, nor from a LGA perspective. There is a consultation document out there with regarding more flexible use of capital receipts, which we're hoping will be a positive move, which we'll get sometime in the middle of next month. So as far as I'm aware, there's no extra money, and we're administering per the rules of the scheme, which meld us, from a central government formula perspective. So yeah. But bear in mind, it is an election year, so you never know. More money might be found. But as I say, Simon Hall, the LGA minister, didn't give any promises that there would be.
Thank you.
That's really
Ian.
helpful. Thank you.
Yes, as Ian says, it's an election year, or potentially an election year. So who knows what the future may hold?
Yeah. So the last thing which the minister was more exercised about was councils doing 4-day weeks, and how they were going to legislate to stop councils working part-time, in his words, rather than working out the fact that people can do 40 hours in 4 days, and you probably get a more committed workforce, and that's what the corporate sector is doing. And if we're wanting to compete with talent, we have to compete against what the private sector is doing. So it did seem a very strange thing for him to start beating on about, but hey ho, it's obviously something much close to his chest, that he feels that people only working 4 days are part-timers, but that was his view.
Thank you, Ian. That's very helpful. Does anyone else have any questions on this item? No? Okay, in that case, as that was just for discussion, then I'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is the school's funding formula for 2024-25. And I think you've laid out some very interesting numbers. Melanie, if you'd like to just take us through this, please.
Yes, so this is now just for information only, because we've already been through and approved all the formula already. So this is just how it then translates into the final numbers. I think what's probably of most interest to schools is the table. It's on page 30 of the pack, which is what shows what each school will now get as their allocation for the year going forward. So that is subject to political ratification, which Councillor Cottingham will be doing tomorrow. So hoping that he agrees with everything in here, and at that point we'll email schools and say this is your final allocation confirmed, and we let the Department for Education know at that point as well.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Did you want to add anything to that, Ian?
No, I think as Melanie's been able to demonstrate, as though the numbers are, hopefully it's all in line with expectation. Hopefully the errors which I think the government had previously made have been all corrected now. Obviously schools are, the fact that from your perspective, these are the numbers and this is what's going to happen, obviously wouldn't be as much as you would like to have, but yeah, we've applied the formula and this is the outcome.
Thank you very much. Does any member then have any questions or comments they'd like to make? No, I don't see any hands up. So we'll pass on then to agenda item 9, which is a verbal report from Jane Seymour on the high needs block budget proposals for 24-25. Can I ask Jane if you would like to take this up, please?
Thank you, Chair. This will be quite a brief update. As you know, normally at this time of year, we'd be looking at a detailed budget proposal in terms of figures for 24-25. The reason that we're not doing that today is that officers are working at the moment with members of the Heads Funding Group on the fine detail of the proposed 24-25 high needs block budget. It will be a deficit budget, as you would expect, as it has been in previous years recently. But what we're trying to do is ensure that the deficit is contained as much as it possibly can be. There's going to be a special meeting of the Heads Funding Group shortly on the 7th of February, where we will be working on those details using some information which officers are collating at the moment. So there won't be a full report setting out the proposed 24-25 high needs block budget until the next meeting of the Schools Forum in March. The issue of Invest to Save projects came up previously in the actions. So just to say that when we do present proposals for the 24-25 budget, that will include proposals around those Invest to Save projects, which were discussed as part of a previous report to this group.
All right, thank you very much, Jane. I know there's an awful lot of work going on, and or has been, and a lot of work and discussions taking place. And I know this was discussed at our last Schools Forum meeting as well. Does anyone have any questions for Jane at this point?
Sorry, it's Trevor again. Can I
It's
just
Trevor
ask a
again.
very general?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's all right,
Trevor
Trevor,
again.
don't worry.
But just a general question: Are we worried about what will be the result? Do schools need to do anything?
I don't think schools need to do anything at the moment. I mean, the high needs block is always an area of concern because we have been setting a deficit budget now for several years. And inevitably that deficit is likely to be higher in 24-25 than it was in 23-24. But what we're doing is trying to look at ways of containing that in a way which, protects our ability to meet children's statutory needs. So I don't think there is any reason for schools to be concerned at the moment, but we will have more detail at the next meeting.
Thank you, Jane. Does anyone else have any questions, comments? No, I don't think so. Okay, in that case, I will move on to agenda item 11, which is the DSG monitoring report for 2023-24 quarter 3. As Lisa's not here, can you take this item, please, Melanie?
Yes, I can. Our DSG allocation for 23-24 was 167 million. Some of that goes straight to academies and high needs places. So this budget is built on what remains, and that's 115.7 million. The budget was also set with a 3 million efficiency target, or rather it was because we couldn't build a budget with the amount of funding available. So there was a £3 million shortfall in the first place. As is probably expected, that hasn't been met or anything against the 3 million. So that still stands as an overspend. But in addition, there is also an additional overspend in the high needs block of a further 1.5 million. All the other blocks are pretty much break even. So what we have in the table at 4.5 in the bottom right, it shows that the deficit balance coming into the year was 4.7 million, and that is expected to be 9.5 million cumulative by the end of 23-24. So obviously not great news there, and all within the high needs block. So the last table in the report at 4.9 shows the balances on the block, and actually the schools block has got quite a big surplus in it due to the growth fund. But that just breaks it down by each block there.
Thank
So we've got any
That's all
questions?
laid out in the report. Gemma, you have a question?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that there is the body of work that's going on with the schools forum, the head teachers group, is targeted at deficit management, and I feel like it can't be undersold how important that work is. Therefore, I don't have any questions or statements around this particular paper, but would absolutely have if we weren't having those additional meetings. I think they're going to be really pivotal, and we're very clear about what's got to be achieved. So I think both, it's important to note that both are taking kind of alongside each other. So thanks for sharing, Melanie.
Okay, yeah, and thank you for that comment, of course, because yeah, this report is sort of quite stark by itself, but there is all that going on, and we're also part of the Delivering Better Value scheme as well, or which is designed to help us reduce this overspend and get the deficit back.
Thank you. Richard, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. The primary driver of this huge increase in costs for SEND, is it a combination of more children with diagnosed needs plus the costs of providers? And how does it compare? I mean, I know we're not, it's a national issue, but in the last, say, 5 years, what's the increase been, just out of interest?
Jane, would you like to comment on that?
In terms of the drivers, I would say it's a combination of an increase in the number of children needing education, health and care plans in mainstream schools, both maintained schools and academies, and also an increase in the number of children needing places in independent, non-maintained special schools, combined with an increase in the unit costs of that external provision. But Melanie might be better placed to speak about how much it's increased in the last 5 years and how that compares with other authorities.
Would you like to answer that, please, Melanie? Thank you.
I'm not sure I can actually off the top of my head. I'm afraid I don't know much about other authorities on this. But yeah, I mean, we can see how much the increase has been because we're up at 9.5 million here. And in the table at 4.5, you can see how that's increased. So in 2021, we had a 1.4 million deficit. So it seems to almost be doubling every year. That's the rate we're at the moment.
Okay. Trevor, you have your hand up. Would you like to ask?
Yeah, just on that point, we were discussing this at Deanfield only last week. And what we have found is that we've had many more parents actually taking out private assessments and coming in with some quite detailed needs, which had they gone through the local authority route, they may not have got to such an extent. And there is concern expressed that if the parents can actually afford a private assessment, that is actually skewing the budget and making more people needing more finances, but also they seem to have a greater need, in inverted commas, than pupils who go through the present local authority, which is a very long-term route. That's the problem. So if you're waiting a long time for assessment. If you go privately, you understand why a parent does that. But as I say, the private returns seem to be giving a greater need to a pupil than others. That was a comment from our SEND team.
Yes, thank you, Trevor. Richard, you want to come back in?
Thanks. Yeah, it does seem that I know there's loads of good work going on to try and address this issue. But it's something I've raised before in previous meetings, and I don't know whether this is going on at LGA level or whatever. It doesn't seem that there's much cross-council consultation or discussion about it. But one of the primary drivers, then, it seems to me, is the costs by external private providers. Venture capitalists who are doing quite nicely out of all this. Thanks very much. And I just, are there any breaks or checks and balances? This is one of the core drivers, it seems to me, and it doesn't seem that it's being addressed.
Jane, can you answer any of those concerns, because it clearly is a huge increase?
Yeah, just to say, we're trying to address that in two ways. One is by creating more of our own local maintained specialist provision, so that we're less reliant on independent non-maintained schools. So, for example, Castle at Theale, which has been open since 22, will have 42 places. Eventually that will have a big impact. Kennet Valley SEMH provision opening in September, and there are further new provisions planned in our 5-year SEND plan. The other issue which has been raised is about the cost of those placements and increase in unit costs. Sometimes those can be justified, whether in line with teachers' salary increases, etc. We do always challenge anything which we think is not justified. But this is where the Delivering Better Value programme will help us in the next year, because it will give us some more commissioning capacity to be very, very proactive around that, and to review costs of all of our placements, actually, and be able to spend more time looking at those costs and any increases in costs, which will be very welcome.
Thank you, Jane. Does anyone else have any comments to make? Yes, Ian.
Yeah, this is more sort of wider regarding children care plans. So this was debated, as I said, the conference I attended a couple of weeks ago in Westminster, and we had the Section 151 officer saying if there's anything which he would get the government to do would be to regulate the actual care plans which we have for our children. The fact that at the moment they're not regulated, and I think it's been mentioned earlier that the fact that it's attracting hedge funds, it's attracting entrepreneurs who are making a lot of money in this space, and I think, as you say, that there's a huge amount of pressure being put onto local authorities' budgets, and not least our own, with the increase in number of children requiring dedicated care plans, and the cost of their care plans are being provided as well. So you're getting instances. I think what I've read recently, you've got one poor local authority costing £63,000 per week, and it is an area which is really running out of control, and there does need to be a greater regulation on here, because all it's doing it's attracting basically people who are making money out of all of us on this call through our council tax, and it's not necessarily we're getting value for money for it.
Yes,
that's a wider discussion, but yeah, you can probably tell my frustration about this.
I think everyone shares that frustration in many respects. Does anyone else have any comments they want to make? This is clearly a very complex subject, and I think we look forward to the report as it comes out to our next meeting in March, Jane. I'm sure a lot of work's going into that in the meantime. Okay, thank you very much for all of your comments on that. Item number 12 is just to note our forward plan. The only work program plan at the moment is our next meeting in this current year on the 11th of March. Does anyone have any points to raise on that item? No? Okay. In that case, it just leaves me to address item 13, which is to declare that the date of our next meeting is Monday, the 11th of March, 2024, and that's 5 p.m. and this will be at Shaw House. It's been felt that there are a lot of new members and we really ought to get to know who we are rather than looking at each other on the screen. So Jess has booked the Dolman 1 room at Shaw House, and we look forward to seeing you all on the 11th of March. We'll therefore close the meeting, and thank you to everyone. That concludes the business of our meeting. Can I ask that you remain in the Zoom meeting until the host has confirmed that the live stream has been stopped? Thank you all very much for your comments and your attendance this evening. It's good to see you all.
Yeah, can confirm it has been stopped.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you all very much indeed. I wish you a happy evening.
Thank you, Graham.